Welcome to Christian Parent Crazy World, the podcast that tackles tough topics to help you be a godly parent in an ungodly world. I am your host, Catherine Seegers, and in today's episode, we will tackle this very timely question. How can we teach our children the virtue of generosity in a way that not only shapes their character, but also makes an eternal impact in our world this Christmas? That is a tall order. Is it even possible? Yes, it is. You will see, because today we are leaning into the idea that the traditions we build, especially in this season, can form hearts that see beyond themselves. And one of the most meaningful ways we can do that is by giving in a way that changes someone else's story forever. I am joined today by Christy Graham of Samaritan's Purse, and we're taking a fascinating look at their Christmas gift catalog, which provides an opportunity for families like yours and mine to give gifts that quite literally transform lives. And at the same time, you will be planting seeds of generosity in your kids' hearts. And let me just say, you may want to grab some tissues. The stories Christy shares today are deeply moving and beautifully hopeful. This is also a wonderful episode for your kids to hear right along with you. These stories could change their lives forever too. That's the ground we will cover in this episode of Christian Parent Crazy World. So let's get started. You know, a few years ago, I had this moment, one I will never forget. I was sitting in my living room, staring at our Christmas tree. The lights were glowing. The presents were stacked like several feet high and were pouring out into the den. Everything felt magical and Christmassy and abundant, like decadent even. And in the middle of all of that beauty and abundance, I felt this sharp conviction that I needed to do more. My family needed to do more, not out of guilt, but out of gratitude, out of a deep sense that the generosity and abundance that God has poured into our lives wasn't meant to stop with us. That moment is when we started a new family tradition. We gathered our kids and sat down together and opened a gift catalog, not for ourselves, but for families we would never meet and places we may never go. And yet with that simple choice, we could change someone else's life forever. A goat, a water filter, clean diapers, emergency food, seed for crops, a medical procedure. These were gifts that offered hope, real, tangible hope. Today, you're going to hear about some of the families whose lives have been transformed by gifts just like these. And to help us explore this, I am so honored to be joined by Christy Graham of Samaritan's Purse. Christy is the host of the On the Ground with Samaritan's Purse podcast, which she launched in 2019 because she wanted people to see God's faithfulness up close and personal. And when she's not on the field, she and her husband, Edward, are raising their 4 kids in the beautiful mountains of North Carolina. And it's that global firsthand perspective that makes her voice so important for this conversation today. So with that said, let's jump right in. Christy, welcome to Christian Parent Crazy World. It is such an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So you wear a lot of hats. You are host of the On the Ground podcast with Samaritan's Purse. You're wife to Edward Graham and mom of 4. Before we jump into Christmas giving and one of the best ways that we can teach our kids the virtue of generosity, especially at this time of year, I want to learn, and I want my listeners to learn a little bit more about you. So how you became part of the Graham family and got involved in Samaritan's Purse, because I've been listening to your podcast and it seems like such a natural fit for you. So tell us a little more about that.
Well, thank you. Yes. My husband, Edward, he is Franklin's son. And we, of course, have had interactions with Samaritan's Purse our whole marriage since we got married, but he was in the United States military, the Army. And so we lived all over the country and didn't have a chance to serve directly, just indirectly throughout those years. And then when the Lord called him out of the military, which was a complete shock to both of us, we loved the military life. I'm an Army brat, and so it's all I've known, and our kids loved it. We loved it, but God called us to come here almost 8 years ago. And I think as we came, I just was praying and seeking and, okay, God, what do you want me to do here? And I think I realized I have a privilege to meet some of our staff. I get to travel and I get to see some of the work firsthand. And I felt like it was a great way for me to bridge between our staff, our families, our prayer warriors, our donors, to be able to just be a bridge to what the work does around the world. So I started the podcast pretty soon after we moved here. And it's just a joy and a privilege again for me to get to see glimpses of the ministry. But I'm also a mom, 4 kids. So that is my full-time, job and first priority. But I'm able to do both and I love it. And it's a joy and a privilege, but kind of like you, so I love the title of your podcast. It truly is a crazy world, and trying to be a Christian parent in it is about, it's a battle. And I think I'm so thankful for podcasts and, like-minded parents to walk through it with. So thank you for what you do.
Oh, amen to that. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I've been listening to your podcast, loving it. And I really enjoyed learning so much about the work you're doing around the world. Of course, I've heard of it before and seen it in action. We always see it on the news. We see some of things online, but I especially enjoyed your recent podcast with Janet Huckabee. That was so cool. Of course, she is now serving with her husband, alongside her husband, Mike Huckabee, who is a U.S. ambassador to Israel.
Right.
But I had no idea that she had been working with Samaritan's Purse. Not only that, but she was very much looking forward to being able to do that while she's in Israel, and just learning more about her. We know so much about her husband. Learning more about her was such a joy. So tell our listeners what they might be able to learn from your show on the ground.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I love the podcast. Because yes, we love hearing from Franklin, and we love hearing from some of our, leadership, which is always great. And the news, spotlights our medical work and some of the big disasters that we respond to. But there are so many volunteers and other people throughout the ministry that you would never hear from. And that's what the podcast does. We truly take you to the front lines and around the world to see what God's doing. And yes, sometimes it is. Janet is a volunteer with U.S. Disaster Relief. She's been for many years, which people don't know about. And so I love kind of bringing the quieter ministries and people. And that's what the Christmas catalog is too, what we're going to talk about in a minute. Again, they're not small aspects of the ministry by any means, but there may be unheard of or unseen heroes of the ministry. And so again, the podcast, every episode's different. We will take you to Kenya. We will take you to Israel. We will, it's just kind of a broad, because our ministry does so many different things. It's different every week. I kind of feel like it's like whiplash. We'll be talking about Operation Hail Our Patriots one week, and then cleft lip, palate, surgeries the next. And so it's fun. It's exciting. But like you said, it's a way for people to get a glimpse into the ministry that they might never know about or hear about. And so it's really fun. And so I enjoy it.
Yeah, all of the beautiful people on the ground that you'd never hear from. I think that is amazing, because it's easy for them to get forgotten. They need to be lauded too, Yeah. And it's wonderful that you have that opportunity to do that. And I have a couple of kids. A couple of my teenagers are very, very interested in missions work. They've been on missions trips with our church. They've been to Asia. They've been to Mexico. They're planning future trips. And so this is a podcast you could pass along to older kids and younger kids to learn more about missions work, because my kids really want to continue in that, perhaps even in full-time missions as they go forward and graduate and go out into the world. So I think that's a wonderful resource. Another thing though, what we're talking about today, we started this tradition a few years ago with my kids because frankly, I was looking at this Christmas tree that was just laden with so many gifts. So many of them things we didn't need, really need, like another pair of boots, another sweater, another game. And of course, we love to do that. We love to lavish our kids with gifts. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. God lavishes us with gifts. But sitting back and remembering, okay, we live in the most prosperous nation in the world. We have so many things, and it's just not like that for so many people around the world. And one of the best ways that we can share the gospel is by meeting those needs. And so we started a tradition where we would sit down with a gift catalog and look through it with our kids and allow the Holy Spirit to stir something in their hearts, something that they wanted to give towards. And we would go and learn more about that giving opportunity. So we've been doing that for the last few years, and it's one of my favorite traditions that we do in our home. So let's talk about the Samaritan's Purse Christmas gift catalog. And why don't you tell us exactly what it is and why it's such an easy, you've made it so simple, but meaningful way for families to give during the Christmas season?
Yeah, it's great. You can go to our website and see it digitally, or you can get a hard copy, which I have right here. And it just, every year we spotlight between 30 and 40 gifts. And we just, some start at $7, some are a higher, bid for like a well or something. But yeah, we just categorize and share where the work is happening, what they're doing, and we give some scripture and ways to pray, but it just opens your eyes. In fact, 5 years ago, I think we did an episode on this where I actually interviewed my kids. Which ones do you want to pick? And I actually started crying hearing their voices, but it shocked me. Some of the gifts that they picked, I wouldn't have thought that they would pick that. And so then I called some of our directors overseas to hear how it's impacting people and what it's doing. So that's how we set up our episode. But same, we've been doing it for years. Our kids go through it and they pick something. We give to a lot of our family, especially their grandparents who don't need anything, don't want anything.
Yes.
I have them pick out a special gift for them and introduce them to that project. And it helps them to get outside themselves. And like you said, there's nothing wrong. I let them go through the Lego catalog. My boys are already circling what they want. Yeah. That's okay. But I also want them to know there are kids that don't have anything, and we see that through Operation Christmas Child. Some of these kids have never received a gift in their life. They've never received anything new. To have something in a package. And again, something we take for granted every day. My kids, they get a new toothbrush all the time. Some of these kids have never had one. And so again, not to make them feel guilty or bad, but just to open their eyes and allow them to be more grateful and have, more gratitude in the gifts that they do receive as they're giving. So I think it's just a great way you don't have to leave your door. You can open their eyes to the world through this catalog and you can give something very meaningful and eternal for Christmas. So we love it. We go through it every year too. And sometimes I'll let them even pick out, say they're giving a well project. I'll let, we'll maybe buy a water bottle or something to give to, we did it for my parents last year. That way they did get something tangible too, but we introduced them to the project. And so it is a great way to incorporate your kids and show them it truly is more blessed to give than to receive. And I think it has changed even their asks for themselves each Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I've seen such a change in my kids as well. To just be outward thinking and, putting that on their list of what who they want to touch in other parts of the world, who they want to help in other parts of the world. And for our listeners who want to check it out while we talk, you can visit SamaritansPurse.org/parent. They've made it super easy for families to browse together. And you touched on something there. We have a lot of people in our lives, particularly grandparents who might be downsizing. They don't need something new, but this is an opportunity. You've made it so easy to give to someone else. You can give in someone else's name. One of the things I hadn't thought about, because your gifts start I think you said $7. That's amazing. So like giving to your teachers, giving to tutors. I haven't done that before. I'm really excited to try that this year, that we can maybe get a little gift to go along with it. But, we've got 5 kids. One's in college. We don't have to worry about our professors. But the other 4 kids, I've got teachers and tutors that I need to be giving to. And because, we're on a tight budget, I think a lot of people are. Economies, we're struggling a little bit here. But that makes it very easy to start giving gifts to teachers and tutors and other people and put a little, something along with it. Like you said, a water bottle. You can, some of the projects you don't have to fund the whole well or something. You can just fund a portion of an operation, like a medical operation or a well. Talk a little bit about those kinds of opportunities and the giving in somebody else's name. You've made that pretty easy for families to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's always a suggested gift donation, but obviously you can do whatever you're able to do, or you can do a share the cost, like Mend a Child's Heart. We do Children's Heart Project, where we do heart surgeries for kids in countries that they cannot afford. you might not be able to afford the whole surgery donation, but you can share the cost and do a smaller portion. And I love how you said that about teachers, because I've never done that. And you're actually challenging me because
I thought of that this
it
year.
opens their eyes to something that's happening. But yeah, you can go online and you can they'll send you a card and you can have them write it out, or you can write it out who it's going to in honor of. And then it describes the program a little bit. And so you can give them that so they know where it's going. But like I said, I usually like to give something tangible too. So if it's like the honeybees, I'll give a jar of honey, which I think would be a fun one for teachers. So, local honey. And then they're also giving to the Honeybee Project. So it's just, I think, because everyone loves to open their eyes to things outside themselves, right? Even if you're not a Christian, I think we do.
Yeah.
I think it helps us. Perspective changes our situation, right? Like hard is hard, but perspective changes us. It lifts us. When we think our life is hard and then we look outside ourselves, I think it changes everyone. And so it's just great to open our eyes this Christmas season. And like you said, no one really needs anything. We don't need more stuff. And I think sometimes these creative, I thought of you. I know how much education is to you. So I gave, a Bible to someone in your name. I mean, something like that. It's just, I think we do want more thoughtful gifts of intentionality. So there are 34 gifts this year. And again, you can really personalize. My dad was a veteran, so I gave him an Operation Heal Our Patriots project last year. And that meant a lot to him, knowing that, something he cared about and loved was, and again, these gifts are all eternal. Like, yes, they are a tangible thing that we're meeting people with physical needs, but it is an eternal gift because they are hearing the gospel. They are working with our local partners and local churches. They will all hear the gospel of Jesus Christ when they get one of these gifts. And so that's the most exciting thing, is that they are hopefully hearing an eternal gift that will last forever.
And they're open to hearing that because you've met a need. That's how Jesus ministered.
Yep.
He fed the 4,000, he fed the 5,000. Then, he was able to share truth with them because they were open and receptive to it. And I actually teach at our homeschool co-op for any of my students who would love to give me a gift. I would love something like that. And let's talk about some of these gifts though, because I'm really excited about this one, the honeybees.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite gifts. Not only do I love honey, I started putting that in my coffee this year.
Me too.
Instead of any other sweetener, I'm using honey. It's healthier.
Yep.
And I think that one's for $20. You can help a family in a place like Kenya or Cambodia to learn about beekeeping and create a sustainable income. So tell us about the impact of a gift like this, like honeybee hives. And if you have any stories you want to share about any lives that were changed through a project like this, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite projects. I've given it many times, like I said, and I give honey along with it. But
yes.
And initially when I got involved, I thought of, yes, it's helping them make money, which yes, it does. They learn to harvest honey and they're able to sell it, which gives them, more quality of life. But more than that, it's an ongoing, like our teams, they give them all that they need to start doing honey. So it's like a starter kit basically. But we don't just say, have fun, good luck. Our teams walk alongside with them. So we have, and you said we're in like 4 different countries doing this, Cambodia, Iraq, Kenya, and our teams walk alongside, make sure they understand, that they're understanding, because many times they haven't done this before. So it's a trade that they're not familiar with. Yeah. And so it's a relational project. It's lots of interaction. And we've had many that have come to know Christ because of the staff member that's helping them. They disciple them. They get to model Christ in front of them. And it gives them purpose and dignity, because I think, and I actually was thinking of Ruth, and how in the Old Testament, they said, care for the widows and the orphans, and they would ask them to leave a percentage of their, crops for them to glean from, right? Like Ruth would go in and glean from the fields. We don't want to just, sometimes we give them a handout, but I think when you give them purpose and dignity and allow them to glean and work, I think it is more meaningful of a project. And so this honeybee project, they learn a skill, they learn a trade, they're able to sustain their family. And yeah, one man in Iraq, his name was Ibrahim, and he was mute and his wife was blind. So they were very marginalized. It was very hard to find work. And so they got involved with this project, and Ibrahim loved it. He started planting more flowers, to knowing that the bees needed to pollinate, and just took off and harvested, I think, a record of the honey for that year. But his whole family got involved. And so now they're able to make a living. They have dignity. Our staff has, again, walked with them long term. And I think in some of these countries, to make a spiritual impact, it does take time. You have to build that trust. You have to build the relationships. And they just say that this family, their countenance has changed, their joy. And so that's just one circumstance. And then there's another in Kenya, a man named David who got involved and loved and took off with this project. And he did become a Christian, because of the example of the staff member that was doing it with him. And just, again, was then able to provide roofing for his house and take care of things and, put his kids in school. And so it does give them money, but more than that, it gives them purpose and dignity and hope for a future because, we in here in America, we don't know what it's like to be lacking and to not be able to get a job. In some countries, when you're marginalized, you can't get a job. And so to give them something that they have value and worth and can teach their kids. So it seems small, but it is. And that's why I love this catalog because it's not a huge hospital that we're setting up like we are in Jamaica, where it's on the news. This is something probably we would never know about, but it is truly making ripple effect impacts in these countries and for these families. And so, yes, it is an incredible project. And people, especially like me, who love honey, I think every time I put it in my coffee as well. Every time I put it in my coffee in the morning, I pray and think of these projects and just the impact.
That, yeah. Yes. When we're putting honey in something, some of my kids like it on cereal or cream of wheat. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't like it on that, but my kids do. Just when we're using those kinds of products let's talk about this next one too. The baby chicks. That's another one I really love. I think that one was like $14. You can provide a dozen chicks to a family and these birds will feed the family for years. So talk a little bit about that, how that can help struggling families have some sort of a breakfast, and you can talk about that with your kids about how these chicks are providing eggs for these families, not just today, but for years to come.
Yep. Yeah. And this is another one. My kids often pick this one too, because they themselves want chicks. They ask for them all the time. And I'm like, okay, guys, it's a lot of work. And it is a lot of work. And that's why, again, this is another relational project where we do give them a dozen chicks, but we walk with them. We have veterinarians that help them learn how to give them shots and teach them how to keep them healthy. And if they need coops, we set them up for success because it is hard. And this is a great project because our teams, again, disciple and walk with them long term. But like you said, it will feed them for years to come. And most of the times they will double, triple their brood of chicks, over time. Wow. And so then they have more and more and they can sell those. And, it's just, again, teaching them a trade. And this one, I think more so than even the honey, the entire family gets involved, the kids, because it is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Getting those eggs every morning. And there was a family in Iraq. Again, I'm coming back to Iraq, but I think it was hit hard by ISIS, in 2014. And many of the communities that we're working in, family members were kidnapped or murdered and homes devastated and destroyed. And a lot of the women, they struggle with just mental health and just suicidal and just it is really hard to rebuild from that. And one woman that we helped, she was severely suicidal and just didn't want to live anymore. Her husband was killed. She had 3 kids. And Rhonda got involved with this project and we gave her chicks. And she, again, went from 12 to now 80. Her kids have gotten involved and they just have loved, again, this purpose and dignity. It gets you out of bed. It makes you have to do something. She wasn't able to work. And so her life has been forever changed. And again, our teams say her countenance, her joy, when they come to visit her, she is just radically changed, and not just monetarily, but yes, she is making a living now. But again, that purpose and dignity. And when you're that low, it is hard to get out of bed. You don't want to live anymore. And so she has now, she has these chicks that rely on her. And again, I think this is why animals are so important. And we just got a puppy. And I think as crazy and chaotic as that is, it gives everybody purpose. Our kids have to take turns and you got to take her out a lot. And so it's made us rally together. And so I know that's a silly example, but it's made me think of these projects that animals, they can change lives, and again, absolutely. But again, we give them the physical, but we walk with them. So our teams are walking with them. They're discipling them. They're teaching them and training them. And so there is physical, but also eternal impacts being made. And then there was another family in Cambodia that got chickens too. And their fields and their crops just weren't yielding. And so they were in debt for years, couldn't harvest whatever they were trying to grow. And they tried to do chickens on their own and they couldn't because they would get sick. It's hard. Livestock is hard to keep up with if you don't know what you're doing. And so they found out about our project, and Samaritan's Purse was able to come in and help and again, teach them through vets and how to keep them alive. And now they are thriving. They are able to sustain and keep these chickens alive. So it's just, we see it time and time again where people have tried. I mean, they're trying to make a living. They're trying to do the right thing, but they can't. And so I love that our teams can come alongside and help them succeed physically, but more importantly, spiritually.
Yes.
And then we can connect them to a local church. And again, Samaritan's Purse, every project that we do, we work with the local church. So we know and work with partners that live there, that will be there long-term and can help disciple them in their faith long after these projects are over. But many of these will be with them long-term. So it's really exciting. But yeah, these chicks, again, seem so simple. And we give them to my father-in-law a couple years ago, and we got him like a little rubber chick from Hobby Lobby.
Probably so not a real one. A real one might be.
If you want to, if the kids want to give something, to say,
yes.
Okay, you can look at this as a symbol of what's happening in Cambodia or wherever it's going to go. And it's just
love that.
Really exciting.
There's no way around it. When it comes to healthcare, people are really frustrated with how much it costs and how to pay for it. The usual ways we've been doing this have only gotten more expensive, more complicated, and honestly, just aggravating. And that's why Medishare is such a welcome relief. It's called healthcare sharing. It's different, and it works. More than 1 million Americans are now doing this, and Medishare has been a great option for more than 30 years. So really, you could save thousands of dollars a year on your healthcare and be happy. Imagine that. If you've heard about it and you want to know more, there are 2 easy options. Go to Medishare.com/devotion. That's Medishare.com/devotion. Or just grab your phone and send a text. You'll get the info, which could really help you and your family out. Text the word devotion to 70246 to get the facts. Text devotion to 70246 and you'll get the link. That's devotion to 70246.
I absolutely love that. And I think, first off, it wasn't a silly example. I can remember a time, our dog that we have, that we got a few years ago, we were kind of in a difficult situation. We had a child that was really struggling in the faith. It was kind of tense around the house. And the Lord just literally, we went to a softball game, and the opposing team, their coach had 3 puppies, and we had no intention of coming home with the dog that day. And we did.
Yep.
And it was the greatest gift in our family, because it's the one thing during that season of our life that we all agreed on. And at times, I think it felt like the only thing that we agreed on. How God can use a creature, a pet, and these chickens. There's just, giving people a reason to get up in the morning, and the fact that you're training people. And the other thing I'm thinking about, $14. My goodness, I can't buy a sweater for that. I can't buy a pair of boots for that, but I can change somebody's life halfway around the world from that. Right. Really? That's just simply amazing. And by the way, I think I should have gotten a box of Kleenex and told people, your stories are making me cry.
It is.
They're amazing. But I think this is the one that really gets me. The Feed a Hungry Baby program. This one is $9. You have, and by the way, a lot of the giving opportunities, you have videos on the website where on the catalog that you can click on. And if you, like I said, you go to SamaritansPurse.org/parent, you can see through the opportunities. And this one has a video with it that you do need a box of Kleenex for, but you can provide, Samaritan's Purse can provide a week's worth of specially formulated food for an infant in crisis. So tell us about that project and how it's such a powerful way to share the gospel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are, over 50 countries that have severe malnourishment, or, I guess you would say famines, struggling with food insecurity. And we are involved in many of these countries. I think Sudan, Gaza are some of the bigger ones that people are aware of. But Yeah, this is for severely, and it's actually 5 and under. So it is babies, and we do formula, but even older kids, we have these little packets. They're basically like peanut butter with a little bit of milk and vitamins and nutrients. So these ready-to-eat packets that when they get to that severe malnutrition beyond, normal food ability to catch them up, we have teams that come in and will measure the kids and make sure, that that's what they need. And yeah, for $9, you can feed a baby for a week. And I think, my kids don't miss snacks. I can't imagine if they miss days worth of food. I mean, what that would do to a mother. In fact, I just was reading Hagar, and that second time she fled,
yes.
When finally it was too much, Isaac and Ishmael, that was just too much. So they finally told her to leave and gave her enough to journey. And she ended up in the desert, starving and thirsty and just beyond hope. And when she looked at Ishmael and she said, I just can't even look at him. She sat at a distance and she wept loudly. And that's when God heard the boy crying. The angel of the Lord called to Hagar. And I think when our teams get to meet with, mothers and parents, but mostly mothers, holding their babies, weeping, it's a way to tell them God heard you. God sees you. And again, we give them this food that they need, but really we all need the bread of life, right? We need Jesus, the bread that feeds us for, eternally. And so I think these feeding programs, they are such a powerful way to share the gospel and share the hope. And again, we want to get them healthy and physically where they need to be before they can even hear about the bread of life. Yes. But again, it just impacts these mothers because, I just cannot imagine watching my children suffer and just... So for our teams to be able to come in, and again, we always work with the local church and we work with partners that are there long-term to help disciple, but it is a really critical need. And so, yeah, when you think of giving a gift, I think this is one that's really weighed heavily on me. And one night we did break out one of these peanut butter packets after dinner, and we had the kids all, and it's actually pretty good. It's pretty sweet. And so we had the kids and we just said, imagine if this was all that you had, because they can stay on the shelf. They're easy they stay, good long. So it's something that we can give these people, give families that is going to last. But imagine if that was all that you had for several weeks, especially as you were getting your body back up to where it needed to be. Could you imagine if that was all you had? But again, that is a wonderful thing for these families because we've seen kids, grinding up leaves, or moms grinding up leaves for sustenance. That's all that they have to give to their kids and try to make things last longer. So this is a huge relief to community. Yes. And so it is $9. Feed a hungry baby, and I think that is one that's very meaningful. And again, I can't think of one person in my life that wouldn't be touched by being given that gift.
Exactly. Exactly. I love this idea. And the video, just seeing the little kids eating that little packet of food was so touching, so touching. I love your connection to Hagar. That's one of my favorite stories. And of course, she says after this, you are the God who sees me. And I love that because she knew that God saw Abraham, the wealthy man that he had called out to start the nation of Israel. She knew that God saw him. But at this point, because he met the need of Ishmael, she looks and she says, no, you're the God who sees me. And I can imagine in some of these countries, maybe they know there are wealthy people around the world, over in the West, over in America, the promised land, there are wealthy people who God sees over there. But does he see me? Does he see me in Cambodia? Does he see me in Iraq? Does he see me in Pakistan? Does he see me in these other places of the world? Has he forgotten me? And there are a lot of Hagars out there. There are a lot of mamas and dads. You shared some about those. Does he see me? And giving a mother in need, like a Hagar like that, this food, they are so open and ready, I imagine, to hear the spiritual truth that God does see them and that he does care, and we can be a part of that. I'm so excited this year. I'm sorry, I'm crying.
No, it is.
It's just so touching. I love that. I love that you connected it to that. And I'm so excited this year because that's what my kids' teachers are getting. I mean, we'll go through and pick something and maybe allow the kids to find some things through there that they might want to give their teachers. But I love that you can give this to someone else.
Yeah.
And I think that's just going to be so powerful and so meaningful. I'm going to be doing a lot of that. You have Giving Tuesday coming up, and I think that's the plan is to air this right before. So that's December 2nd, Giving Tuesday. It's a big day for Samaritan's Purse and for believers everywhere to come together in generosity. So tell us a little bit about that in our closing moments, how parents can give and spark a conversation with their kids about giving instead of just receiving this Christmas.
Yeah, we just want to set the intention before the Christmas season starts, because I think we are so oversaturated with consumption and,
at the beginning.
Buying. So at the beginning, before you get started, and again, we still get caught up in the craziness of the holiday season.
We do. I know.
It's almost impossible, but we are to be in the world, not of the world. And so I think it just sets the month. I think the intention's right. And again, this catalog is awesome. Each gift has a verse that goes along with it.
Yes.
And so it's almost like a devotion. I mean, you can then be given ways to pray, ways to be more focused before the Christmas season starts. So I encourage people to start that way, or if you do Advent or however, it's around that time where you're just starting that, preparing your heart for the, the gift. I mean, because that's what we're celebrating for Christmas. It is the gift of our Savior. Jesus modeled giving, and he gave his one and only son. His greatest gift was given to us. And so I think that just sets our hearts and our intentions right. So I encourage people to, go to the website, check it out. And again, we don't want to put more. I think we can all feel really busy and overwhelmed this time of year. And so you don't want it to be a burden, but a blessing. And I think when you see it that way and even introduce your kids, I think it changes your heart, and adding that doesn't put a burden. So hopefully it'll help people to radiate Christ even more this season, even if it's not giving a high value. It's just your heart, the posture of your heart.
There's no way around it. When it comes to healthcare, people are really frustrated with how much it costs and how to pay for it. The usual ways we've been doing this have only gotten more expensive, more complicated, and honestly, just aggravating. And that's why MediShare is such a welcome relief. It's called healthcare sharing. It's different, and it works. More than 1 million Americans are now doing this, and MediShare has been a great option for more than 30 years. So really, you could save thousands of dollars a year on your health care and be happy. Imagine that. If you've heard about it and you want to know more, there are 2 easy options. Go to medishare.com/devotion. That's medishare.com/devotion. Or just grab your phone and send a text. You'll get the info, which could really help you and your family out. Text the word devotion to 70246 to get the facts. Text devotion to 70246 and you'll get the link. That's devotion to 70246.
Hey everybody, it's Christmas, which means your house currently looks like the shepherds ran through it. Your to-do list is longer than the book of Leviticus, and your kids are asking for gifts that cost more than your first car. So let me give you a little Christmas miracle. Free stuff that actually helps you parent. When you subscribe at catherineseegers.com, I'm going to send my ebook, Beyond the Lies, where I expose those cultural myths that whisper you're not doing enough while you're literally trying to keep tiny humans alive. I'll also send my original scripture songs to help you hide God's word in your heart, or at least drown out Feliz Navidad for 5 blessed minutes for the love. And you'll receive my Prodigal Bundle, which contains all of my favorite resources for prodigal parents. And every week I will send you one simple email. No fluff, no spam, no 12-page epistle. Thank you very much. Just the key takeaways from each episode, transcripts, yay, and what's coming next. So this Christmas, give yourself a break. You don't need more wrapping paper. Well, Maybe you do, but you definitely need more peace. So visit CatherineSeegers.com. That's Catherine with a C. Hit subscribe and let me pour some joy, some scripture, and some sanity into your season. Merry Christmas, everybody. I think it's alleviating a burden for me because I'm always trying to figure out, what do I give this person?
Yep.
I don't know. They don't need anything.
Right.
Or how can I really give them something that's meaningful? And I can't think of anything more meaningful than giving someone else an eternal, something that impacts a family somewhere else in the world eternally, for the rest of their lives. That's amazing.
Right.
And hopefully potentially eternally, as we've planted a seed that allows people to share the gospel with them. So, and I love the idea that you had when you use your honey, I say a prayer. So how can we as parents and with our kids, as we're going through this, how can we be praying for Samaritan's Purse and for the families who are receiving these gifts around the world?
Well, I think, like I said, we work with the local church. We have national partners in every country that we work with. So be praying for them. And a lot of times, especially our national partners, they are living amongst that country as well.
Yeah.
Struggling, suffering, maybe being persecuted. So just be praying for our partners, but also, the people that we are going. We are based upon this, the Good Samaritan. We are going to people in the ditches of life. And just like the Samaritan that the religious leaders walked by, and just, that was too much. We do that so often. And so again, just pray that as we see people in the ditches of life, and again, like I love how you said there are so many Hagars in the world. And I do, this is one of my favorite stories, El Roy, the God who sees.
Yes.
We want people to be introduced to the God who sees. He sees them, he knows them, he created them, and he loves them, and he died for them. And so again, just pray for our partners as they convey that to the Hagars and the people that we encounter around the world. And everyone has different needs, and that's why I love Samaritan's Purse. We have so many different vehicles. We are sharing the gospel. The reason we go is to share the gospel. So that's always the same, but the vehicles are different. Sometimes it's food, sometimes it's medical, sometimes it's, it's Operation Christmas Child, which is another great one that you can get involved with this time of year. But the goal is the gospel. So pray that their eyes would be opened and the soil of their hearts would be prepared to hear the gospel.
Amen. So. Yes. You are creating opportunities. You're planting seeds so that we can share the true meaning of Christmas, which is God's Son given to us so that we might know him and spend eternity with him. So if you'd like to learn more about this, first, you can go and listen on the Ground your podcast in order to learn more about the work you're doing around the world. Like I said, I'm really excited to share that with my kids, but head over to SamaritansPurse.org/parent. That's SamaritansPurse.org/parent. And you will find incredible ways to give as a family this season. We touched on a few of them, the honeybees, the chicks, the feed a hungry baby, but you can also help children in crisis situations. You can care for an orphan. You can help a family survive a disaster. You can serve desperate refugees. We're all concerned about what's going on in Sudan. I know you're on the ground there and you can help with that. You can give towards that this Christmas. You can help stop human trafficking. You can bring clean water to a community. There's so many opportunities. We could be here all day just talking about all of them. But thank you so much, Christy, for joining us today, for your faithfulness, for helping us to see how giving can change the world one family at a time. I really appreciate you being here. Any final thoughts you have that you want to share?
No, I just want to thank you for spotlighting these projects. And I love joining like-minded ministries. So thank you. It's really been a joy and a blessing. And you've encouraged me. And I just want to say I'm going to give these for teachers because I think sometimes.
Yes.
And we saw it with Helene, hitting our community deep. People knew of Samaritan's Purse, but they didn't really know what we did. And sometimes I think I don't want to, especially as a Graham, I don't want to project, here's what we're doing. But I rob them of the blessing and the opportunity, especially people that don't know about Jesus. That might be the way that God penetrates their heart. And so I just am convicted, even talking to you, that not just my family and people that know Jesus and would love these projects. I think we talk a lot about the impact of the ministry this side, especially the shoebox. There's so much ministry that happens here before it goes to the ends of the earth. And so I think this catalog is the same thing. So much ministry and growth and discipleship can happen on this side of the ministry. So just be aware and in tune for the people in your life, in your radius, in your sphere this Christmas season that need to know about the hope of the gospel. So thank you. You challenged me.
Oh, well, it just occurred to me the other day when I was sitting there racking my brain about my kids' teachers' gifts. And I'm like, duh. This is a no-brainer because they're going to love this gift. That's going to be probably the gift that the teacher remembers the most.
Yeah.
And not just them, other people in my life who just don't need another trinket. They don't need anything, any more candy, and so this is something eternal that we can give them. So I'm so excited about that. Also, we talked before the show. I hope to have you back on next year sometime to talk about your adoption journey, because you've adopted a beautiful little boy from China named Levi, and you are a mom, doing this cross-cultural adoption. And I was raised as a sibling. My sister was adopted from Seoul, South Korea. And so I was raised in a home like your children that is biracial. And it has just been such a beautiful thing. So I'm hoping we can reconnect in the new year and I've never had a conversation about adoption on the show. It's a parenting show. And I would really love to do that because of all the parallels. We've all been adopted into the body of Christ, and we're all made one with one another. We're all family. So I'm really excited to reconnect with you, hopefully in the new year, and have that conversation.
I would love it. This has been so much fun. I look forward to that too. Thank you so much.
Moms and dads, be sure to check out SamaritansPurse.org/parent for opportunities to share the love of Jesus with people who desperately need to know that God loves them and he cares about their needs. As we wrap this up, moms and dads, I just want to remind you that this season is such a beautiful opportunity to shape our kids' hearts. We can teach them that Christmas isn't just about what shows up under their own tree, but about how we can be the hands and feet of Jesus to someone else in need in another part of the world. Even the smallest gift, when given in love, can ripple out in ways we may never fully see on this side of eternity. Now, again, if you want to explore these meaningful gift opportunities with your family, head over to SamaritansPurse.org/parent to browse the gift catalog online. It's a powerful way to sit down with your kids and ask, how can we be a part of God's story of hope this Christmas? Be encouraged, moms and dads. What you model matters, and your generosity is planting seeds that will last far beyond this season and far beyond your own life. We'll see you next time. I want to thank you for joining me today. Look, I know there are a lot of things you could be listening to right now, and I really appreciate that you took this time to spend with me. I hope you will join me for my next podcast when we take aim at some aspect of our culture that threatens to derail our parenting and steal our kids' faith. If you enjoyed this episode of Christian Parent Crazy World, would you consider telling a friend and sharing it on social media and giving it a good review over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and following me on Facebook and Instagram? Oh, and maybe you could say that Christian Parent Crazy World is the best podcast you've ever heard in your entire life. Just a thought. And be sure to check out my website, which is CatherineSeegers.com. That's Catherine with a C. I have lots of articles and resources there that will help you on your parenting journey. And if you subscribe, I will be sure to send you some really cool free stuff and notify you of future podcasts, articles, and blogs. I want to end this and every episode with a word of encouragement. God gave you your kids, your specific kids, for a reason. That's because you hold the key to unlocking who God created them to be. We'll see you next time.
Christian Parent Crazy World is a production of Life Audio and Salem Media. If you liked what you heard today, please take a second to rate and review this podcast in your favorite podcast app so that more listeners like you can find the show. For more faith-filled, inspirational podcasts, visit us at lifeaudio.com.